This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Jed's Barbershop. With 3 locations now, you have no reason to not always look your best. Go get a haircut, a beard trim, or even a straight razor shave. Jed's Barbershop is open 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday 9 to 7, and Sunday 12 to 5. They have a location downtown at 212 South, 700 East, and in Sugar House at 2153 East, 2100 South. They just opened up a 3rd location at 167 East, 900 South, right next to Randy's Records. No appointment is necessary. Head on over to jedsbarbershop.com for more information.
Showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people, making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
Welcome to episode 273 of I Am Salt Lake podcast. My name's Chris Hollifield.
And I'm Chrissy Shelley.
On this episode of the podcast, we get to sit down with local Salt Lake City artist Thomas Estrada. We get a chance to find out his story and talk about his passion of art and how he got involved with becoming a Disney animator.
Such a good story.
Yes, it really is. It was very inspirational. When I was going back and listening to this interview that we did with him, I remember how good it was.
Yeah.
But listening to it a second time, I was like, oh my gosh.
Like, it's even better than I remember.
I feel like I can do anything.
I think that's the problem with talking to Thomas Estrada. You do feel like you can do anything.
Well, you know, and so
Is
often
that a problem, though?
In today's society, they make it feel like if you don't have the most perfect education, if you don't have the most perfect life skills, then you're just screwed.
Right.
You can't do anything. But I mean, here is a story of a guy that just had a passion for art.
Yep. He knew what he wanted and he went for it.
And all of a sudden he's creating great animation for all these Disney cartoons. We're going to get into that. I mean, it's a fun conversation.
He's a good storyteller.
I don't want to get into all of it on this intro. You're going to want to listen to this. We're going to play it here in just a second. As always, if this is your first time coming to the podcast or if it's your second time coming to the podcast, don't forget about our website. IamSaltLake.com is where you can go and connect with us. We have all the previous episodes right there online.
You can learn so much about the people of Salt Lake.
Oh my
Just
gosh.
peruse.
There are so many amazing people.
There really are.
Here in this small, it's really a small city.
It's a very small city.
If you think about it.
It's full of really talented, motivated people.
And this is just kind of our little journey as we, in early episodes of I Am Salt Lake, it's like, join me on this journey as I chat with these people here in Salt Lake City. And that's what it is.
It is.
That's
it totally is.
Really what it is.
Yeah.
IamSaltLake.com is the website. So head on over there and connect with us and listen to some of those previous episodes. But if we sound a little stressed out, it's because we are. We're in the process of planning our wedding.
Yeah, and I'll be the first to admit we should have just eloped. We should have just gone to Vegas and did the Elvis wedding. That was your idea in the first place.
It was my idea. Well, I wanted to get married by MJ, little Michael Jackson.
That would have been awesome.
But, and then there's all these people who's like, Chris, you need to get married in Salt Lake City. You need to get married and do this and blah, blah, blah.
And then family's like, but we love you and we want to be there too.
And we want to have you.
Just kidding. I love you, family.
We want to have you part of it too.
Yeah,
at the time of this recording, 34 days away from the big day.
Oh, it's getting there.
We went actually to your brother's house where we're having the wedding in his backyard. We went down there yesterday to kind of scope it out and check it out. And I think it's going to be fun.
I think it'll be fun. It's going to be nice. Like, I just wanted to even sit in the backyard. I'm like, oh, this is relaxing.
So nice. Hopefully if you're listening to this, you got an invite and hopefully you're going to make it out and be able to celebrate our big day with us.
Absolutely.
We have a lot more we want to talk about that and whatnot, but we'll get into that on future episodes and then on social media as well. Hey, but remember, this episode is also sponsored by Oleo Skin and Beard. It's getting to be that time of the year where your skin gets a little more dry and your beard gets a little more dry and you need to moisturize. Oleo Skin and Beard, they have it handled.
They really do. Did you know, and I kind of found this out recently, I've been super, super itchy, like itchy rough patches. I found out that's like another side effect of pregnancy.
Really?
So today I doused myself in the oil, and it's
In the body and skin oil?
The body and skin oil.
So go check it out. Oleoskin.com is their website. They're actually redoing the website. It's beautiful.
It really is. They got some awesome photographs. It's going to be someone I know is a model for the beard oil.
Yeah, well, I'm eager to see how that video came out. We talked about that on a previous episode, how we went into their new facilities and we did some recordings. But they got a great line of beard oils, some new scents.
Oh my gosh, they smell so
I'm a
good.
big fan of. The what is that, Sand? The redwood embers is what I'm wearing right now in my beard.
I kind of like it when we have little fights because then we have to hug it out and I just get to sniff your beard because it smells so good.
Oleoskin.com is their website. Go check them out. Give them some love. Connect with them on social media. But with all that being said, let's jump into the conversation that we had with Thomas Estrada as he shares his story and what it's like to be an animator for Disney. Enjoy.
Those
It's
are bad.
Thomas Estrada, right?
Yes.
Thomas
like
Estrada.
Eric.
Eric, are you related to Eric Estrada?
I'm not. I wish I was, because I've been asked
should
that
just tell
my
people
entire
you
life. I was using him as my uncle for a while, but
Then you get called out.
Exactly.
Someone wants to date you to meet him, and you're like, I'm screwed.
Share that story. I mean, honestly, you were really honestly saying he was your uncle.
yeah, I would tell people he was my uncle for on and off, just depending on my mood. But it's a good thing that I didn't stick with it, because literally, like, I grew up watching Chips, in the 70s. And they used to record that show not far from my house on the 210 freeway. There was a strip of freeway that wasn't finished yet. And so it was empty all the time. And they used that to shoot the show. And so I grew up watching that show. It was right down the street from my house. But all those years, I've been asked millions of times if I'm related to Eric Estrada. Never once met him until not me, but like a month ago, my wife and my daughter took a trip and they had a layover in Dallas, and she sent me a photo, and it was with her and Eric Estrada. She'd run into him at the airport.
No way.
It was awesome.
That is epic. That is
all this time, and she beat
she's
me
the
to it.
one.
Yeah.
Man,
It
because
was
if you had
funny.
that picture, you could really keep it going. You could
totally.
really
If
spread that out.
if now that I
You'd be
had
like,
proof
"Here's
of
my
me
uncle with
Uncle
me."
Eric, yeah.
Where do you call home? Where's home for
So
you?
I grew up in the San Fernando Valley in California, which is just a little bit northeast of Los Angeles. I think you're near Ventura, I believe.
You're. I could tell he's a listener of the podcast.
Yes,
I'm always
you grew up in
impressed.
Ventura.
People that come in here that know where I'm
Yeah.
from. Well, I think I talk about it a lot on the podcast.
I
It's
just
been
read it. I read it on
mentioned.
your profile. It said Ventura. and
See,
that
Chrissy,
stood out to
people
me.
read that. You need to update that.
Yeah, I kind of need to update it.
Chrissy's kind of the web guru.
I spelled his
behind-
name wrong on the website.
Oh.
Nobody look.
Somebody pointed that out
Nice.
to me. They sent me a text. They said you spelled your name wrong, and I
Nice.
was like, well,
Yeah.
no. So I grew up in Ventura. I moved to Utah though over 20 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Well over 20 years. What about you? When did you? Are you?
We got here this summer will be I think we're coming on 9 years now.
Okay. So what brought you to Utah then? I mean, California.
Work.
I mean,
So California. So I grew up there in the San Fernando Valley, and if I'm sure you're familiar with San Fernando Valley, when you wanted to slum it, from Ventura, you
Yeah.
would go into the valley where I was living, and so
the traffic is a mess.
it's a horrible traffic. And I grew up in a little suburb called Arleta, which was a nice way of calling Pacoima. Pacoima was like the hood. That's like the barrio. And so sometime probably in the 60s or so, they split it off into another little city, a little town, and they called it Arleta because it sounded nicer. But Pacoima is where I went to junior high, and I went to San Fernando High School, and it was just like the barrio. I mean, there was just, you were surrounded by gang violence and drugs. And, I got to see, people get beat up with baseball bats, and someone got shot, and, we would be the police, the car chases going down the front, out your front door, you would see a car fly by and then 50 cop cars behind it. and it was just a lot of that kind of stuff, And,
What kept you kind of like out of trouble? I mean, it seems like it'd be easy to fall into trouble.
Yeah, and a lot of my friends did. I honestly think, for me at least, I was so afraid to get into a fight.
Oh, really?
I was so I couldn't.
Just don't want to get punched.
Yeah, I didn't want to get punched. I spent many of my years avoiding getting punched.
Yeah.
And so you would, take detours around hallways when you would see the bad guys down there. You're like, oh, and there he is. And then you would make, split somewhere.
Smart.
And I couldn't, for the life of me, I used to see these gang fights and the street fights like daily. You'd walk home from school and there was the alley around the corner from the school, and that's where the daily fight happened. And so I couldn't avoid it. So you would often, walk by or you would see what's going on. And for the life of me, I could not fathom how somebody can just punch somebody else in the face and just brutalize them like that. It was just, I couldn't figure it out. Like I would look at these people and just like, what brings you to this state to where you can just pummel someone mercilessly? Yeah. It was just so bizarre to me. I was just so, and I would see things like violence to animals. A lot of these gang street kids would do horrible things, and I remember being in junior high school and just going home and just crying because I couldn't. Like, why are you doing this? Like, what is going on in your head that you would act this way, to animals or to other people? And so that was kind of the thing that I was, growing up with.
So it's pretty safe to say you were a good kid growing up.
Yeah, I was a scared kid, so it kept me good. I think fear is a good thing. Fear is a good thing to keep you out of trouble because I was so afraid.
But it could also be a bad thing and hold you back a little bit as well.
Sure, yeah,
hold you back from punching someone who's being a total jerk.
So, do you have like did you come from a big family then?
So I have three brothers. There's four of us, and raised in a single parent home. My mom worked at the General Motors, was the auto plant where I think everybody worked at that day, at that time in the town there. And so she, my mom worked all the time, trying to raise four boys. And then we always had the couple extra guys living at our house. We always had friends that were either kicked out of their homes or had nowhere to go, and my mom just took in everybody, and so it was always a house just full of people, just a lot of friends, and my mom was she was just fantastic in that way. She was doing her best, working that she could, and we would have these all these guys in our house, and this was by this time it was in the early 80s. I was growing up. I had the long 80s hair, and it was like
you were in California too.
California,
that was the surfer look, right?
Well, in the 80s, it was more. I was trying to go for the Tommy Lee look.
Okay,
I weighed like 80 pounds, and I had a giant lollipop hair. I looked like a walking candy apple.
Did you have a Camaro?
Did not have the Camaro. I think we just had, the one guy that lived at our house had the little minivan because he had to put his drum set in there. And so it was all musicians. And so growing up in the 80s, my mom let us turn our garage into a recording sound stage.
Like she let the kids who live with you too.
Yeah, the kids that lived with us tore down the garage and built it into a wall, and we had the foam egg cartons inside, and then we carpeted everything, and there was a drum riser and an 8-track recording thing and amps. And then so all these bands would come and rehearse in our garage. Ours became known as the one place, one of the few places where bands can come and rehearse.
Where their parents wouldn't yell at you.
Yeah, right.
You have the coolest mom.
She was awesome.
That's the best thing you can do to encourage your kids' creativity to grow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And she knew because it was something that was going to keep us out of trouble and keep us hanging around the house. So these bands would all show up, and some of the guys that lived there were in bands, and then other bands would show up and they would all rehearse. And then on Friday night, you'd load everything up into your van and go to Sunset Strip and play the Troubadour and Gazzari's and the Whiskey and all those places, the Rainbow. And so we grew up just doing that, going and...
So did you play music then?
I played drums. The one guy that lived at our house was the drummer. And before we had the garage turned into the studio, his massive drum set took up most of my bedroom. And so having it there all the time, he finally decided just to start teaching me how to play. But I never had any real aspirations of being a musician. I knew I wasn't that good. And so because you would see all these other musicians and they were incredible. And, I just banged on them like a
Did you have
chimpanzee.
like the passion for it, or did you just enjoy it because it was around?
I enjoyed it because it was around.
Yeah.
And
Do you still play the drums?
I do. I play drums. I play guitar, and then my son and my daughter are both musicians, and so it's cool. I just grew up with a love for music, and so that was kind of the thing. Growing up in the house, there was always just those bands that were there all the time, and most of them, I think some of them are still, at it, still doing stuff. There was one guy that did really well, that took off. He's a big metal producer and musician, Roy Z. If you look up Roy Z, he's done quite a few things with Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, and he got to tour Ozfest with Rob Halford from Judas Priest, and he's produced albums for Sepultura and
you should tell him you need free
Bach.
tickets.
He probably has no idea who I am. I tell people that that's my good friend Roy Z, and we went to high school together because we
Estrada.
did. Yeah, exactly.
You're out in the audience. Hey, Roy. Remember?
Roy. Yeah, he'd be like, huh? Who? Yeah.
That's so cool.
Sorry. Go
look
ahead.
at that. I was going to ask, what other passions did you have? Did you know that you were really interested in art as a kid?
Yeah, so art was the one thing, and I think that was why I knew I wasn't that great of a musician as far as drumming. I liked it, but I didn't have the passion the way I did for drawing. Drawing was something that just I did as long as I could remember. I mean, I have very vivid memory of drawing. In kindergarten, in the 70s, there was a Japanese TV show called Johnny Sacco and His Flying Robot. And it was called Giant Robot. And it was this kid, and he had a wristwatch. And he would talk into his wristwatch, giant robot, attack. And he had this giant robot, and he would come to life. Whoosh, and it was this great series. And Giant Robot would fight all these other monsters. And it was this Japanese series. And I loved the design of the giant robot. And I used to just draw them all the time. And I remember really clearly in like kindergarten drawing it. And to me, I just drew it all the time. And I didn't think anything of it. But some of my friends saw it, and they're like, whoa, how did you do that? I was like, I don't know. I know how to draw because I drew it 100 times, with my older brother who used to draw a lot as well. And so it just became a thing, as I was in school. I was the typical class artist. I was drawing everybody's book covers. They had to wrap them
like
in
they
the
would
grocery
come to you
bags.
To decorate. The
brown bags.
Paper
You'd have to paper bags and cover your books.
Do that?
Homemade
I don't
book
know
cover.
if they do those anymore.
I don't.
Your kids don't.
I don't think they, because it was a requirement when we were growing up. I don't know about you.
You had to cover
protect
those.
the book because they're expensive. But
And so
I
that
don't
was
think
this-
kids do it nowadays.
It was this beautiful blank canvas, and so I would draw mine, and then other kids would bring me theirs, and I would draw theirs. And
Did you charge a fee?
no, I wasn't thinking at
You're
the
a good
time. I
sport.
was just drawing
He
these
just
things.
felt honored that they would ask him.
And it was just a cool thing. It was like, whoa,
Yeah.
another blank one. Like I would look at it, it's like, all right,
it's
what are we
fun
going to
for
do? It was totally fun. So when the
Just people out there
people
talking.
out
Wow,
there.
there's like a party outside.
Yes. So, but in the 80s, so I was drawing all these book covers for people. And so I'm drawing, dragons, and the girls always like the unicorns and the Pegasus. And so I was drawing those, and then just drawing everything. I was drawing book reports, and I was on the yearbook staff, and it was just something that I did all through school.
So were you taking lessons to be like art, or?
Yeah, that was one of the cool things. My dad, he would always find stuff that we were interested in, my brothers and I, and he would try to foster that as much as he could. So I do remember I was like in 5th grade, and during the summertime, my dad enrolled me into a drawing class at the community college. And it was really cool because it was all these like adults, and I felt like this little prodigy like Doogie Howser.
Oh, really?
You know?
So you were intimidated?
No, I was so excited
cool.
to be there because I was like the only kid in this community college drawing class. But it was so cool because it just, it was teaching me proper technique and that kind of thing. And so I did that. And then I was taking, all the electives. All of my electives in class in school were painting and drawing and anything artistic. And so that was about the most of it, though. Through school was just that type of thing, and just a lot of stuff learning on my own.
So like further on, like did you go to like any type of college later, universities with art, or at what point in life were you like, this is something I want to pursue?
Yeah,
because obviously, we'll get into. You've done a lot of animation and you've done a lot of that. At what point did that happen for you? So all through school, I'm drawing, and I know this is what I want to do, but
I didn't really have any clear direction on how you actually do this. I didn't know if it was even a real career. I would do those career test placement, things in school, and they'd always said, you should be a graphic designer. And I was like, okay, that's great. What is that?
Yeah.
I don't know. And nobody really knew. Like,
it was very unknown.
It was really unknown. And so it was just kind of this mysterious job out there where you would draw something for someone. And I didn't really know what that meant. And so, I graduate high school, and where I went to school again, it was a very predominantly Hispanic neighborhood. And where I went to school, nobody really talked about going to college. It was never a thing. You either joined the military or you got a job doing whatever your dad was doing, and you got married.
I think that also had to do with the time, though. At that time in life, I remember even growing up in like the 80s and stuff, and there wasn't a lot. It
never came up.
College really wasn't pushed.
It was not pushed at all. I remember talking to my counselors, and they never really talked about it. And so, when they talked about, what classes were required in high school, they would just say, all you really need is the basic math to graduate high school. I was like, all right, sign me up. It was math. That was the name of the class, math. There was no, I don't know what else.
I wish it was
pre-algebra and trig, any of those things. No, it was called high school math. That was it. I remember the funny thing Adam Carolla talks about. It's like a can that just says meat. That's all it was. It was just
most
math.
Generic.
Just the most generic thing. So that's all I did. And so after high school, I followed suit with what most people were doing. I got married like right out of high school, which fantastically enough, we're still married this summer.
It's great when it works out.
September will be 27 years.
Congratulations.
Wow, yeah.
27 years.
Congratulations.
You don't see that around too often anymore.
Yeah, and we dated all through high school. My wife, in fact, she was in junior high when we first started dating. She was in 9th grade and I was in 10th. So we did it all through high school. So we get out of high school and we get married soon after, and I didn't go to college. I think I took a semester at a community college for a drawing class again. And I got kind of discouraged because, they told me, well, these drawing, if you want to be an artist, you have to go to like Cal Arts, these really prestigious art center, or these types of really expensive nice art schools. And they said, you have to dedicate your whole life to it, and you can't have a job because you're just drawing all the time. And I was like, well, I can't afford that. I don't have the time. And because I'm married,
and strictly going to an art school.
Yeah. And so huge. I just kind of gave it up, after, I just figured, well, it's a nice hobby. I like to draw, but it's something I'll do on the side. And so I didn't go to school at all after high school. I didn't go to college, and I found myself, my wife and I had a little apartment, and I was out of work, and I didn't really have any education or training or anything. And so I took a job that just something to pay the bills. And a friend of mine at my apartment got me a job in pest control. And because he said they'll train you and you could make about $25,000 a year or something. I was like, hey, that works. That'll pay for our apartment. And
a high roller.
Sounds like a great deal when you're young and new.
Well, back then, I bet you 25,000 was a lot.
Yeah, I don't even know if it was 25. It was. I think it was about 22, somewhere around there. But so anyway, so I'm working in pest control, and I'm just like, all right, this is kind of my thing. And, working in pest control in the Valley, and I would have these routes in Hollywood Hills and Encino. And so I'd often come across like different celebrities. So I was like killing bugs for the likes of, Faye Dunaway and George Carlin and Jacqueline Smith, and you'd find yourself in these people's homes. You're like, whoa, look at that. There's Jacqueline Smith. And
that's so cool.
Spraying her kitchen, stuff like that. And it was a living, we got a small house way outside of town. We ended up in the high desert because it was the only place you can afford in California. And I'm commuting and I'm just doing pest control and I'm doing
still drawing a little bit on the side.
I'm doing drawing on the side. What I'm doing is I figured out as I'm going in a lot of these people's homes, a lot of them were really nice houses, and you would see like these baby nurseries, and you'd go, hey, you ever thought of painting something on the wall here? Like, I can do these
like a mural.
Bunnies or murals. And so I start painting murals on the side.
Really?
Just on the weekends.
In the Hollywood homes. You just
sometimes
sell
in
it.
Hollywood homes, you would walk in and, and I would go to these houses like month after month. They were on a regular service, And so as you become friends with them and really nice people, and then you would, you'd find out they're having a baby or they have a little nursery. Have you ever thought of doing something on the wall here, like a mural? And, we've been wanting to do something like that. And, well, I happen to have a couple of drawings here. And so I'd end up booking these little gigs, doing these murals on the weekends, just painting. And that was just the thing. It was just a little extra money and a little kind of side
What
thing.
did your wife think about that at the time?
She thought it was cool.
Because, you're making money, I guess.
Yeah,
so
it was
why not?
some extra money.
Yeah.
It was a drag when it would go really late. Or I did one mural once. It was in a home in Malibu. They were moving to Malibu and they wanted to hire me for their new house.
Oh, wow.
But they were going to pay me really well. And so I took the gig. So now I'm doing my pest control job, but then I'm driving clear out to Malibu painting this little girl's room.
So you're probably really busy.
I was wiped out. Yeah. And they wanted all four walls and the ceiling, and it was a whole thing, but it was cool because they were, it was like a paying art job, But that was kind of it, it was just doing the pest control and then just painting and doing whatever stuff on the side. And so this goes on for 5 years. I'm just killing bugs. And I figure, well, it's a decent career. We have a house and our first baby was here and my wife was able to stay home and we're getting by. I hate the job. I hate killing bugs and I hate having cockroaches raining on my head in some apartment or restaurant. When you walk into
restaurant.
an infested.
Probably made it hard going out to eat, right?
It ruined me forever to go out to eat. It was awful.
Okay, I know this restaurant.
save
But you knew the hit list. Yeah, you had your list. You're like, avoid that place. Don't ever go in there because it's a nightmare. And so
That's awesome.
that was kind of it. And so 5 years goes by. We finally went to this family reunion. This was in 96. And my wife has this really large Mexican family. She's got like 44 first cousins. It's just huge family. And so they're doing, it's in Ventura, actually, Ventura County, at El Capitan State Beach, which is up in Santa Barbara.
Yes.
At El Capitan, there's this weekend-long family reunion, and hundreds of relatives are there, and it's really cool. And while we're there, someone comes up to me because they know I like to draw, and they say, hey, there's a cousin here that works for Disney. He's an animator. I was like, whoa, I got to meet this guy. And it was one of my wife's, it was like her third cousin. She didn't know who he was. But we find out Larry Flores is an artist, and I spot him because he's drawing. He's got a sketch pad and he's drawing. So I go and introduce myself, and I said, I'm your wife's husband. I'm your cousin's. Sorry, getting it straight.
That would be awkward.
Your cousin's husband. He's like, oh, Kat.
So you started talking.
And I said, I really enjoy drawing, but I don't have any training. I don't know if I'm any good at this or not, but I wanted to talk to him because he's a Disney animator. And he says, you know what? When we get back home, it turned out he lived not too far from me. So when we get back home, do some drawings, bring them by, and I'll let you know what I think. So I do that, and he's looking at him. He's like, dude, you could totally do this. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, you can get a job at Disney. I'm like, nah, come on. Don't you have to go to art school, Cal Arts, and have a degree? He's like, no, they really don't care. they'll give
want
you
people who have talent.
who knows how to draw. He's like, but it's what you have to draw the right stuff that they're looking for. And he says they're looking for figure drawings, people and animals and gesture drawing. And he says, that's what you're doing here. He's like, you can totally do this. And he says, so just start doing as much as you can. Take a class where I took a class at the community college because they had models there. It's the only place you could find models to pose. And so I'm drawing, go to the zoo, do all that stuff. And in the meantime, he's bringing home animation from Disney. He's working on Fantasia at this time, Fantasia 2000, and he's bringing home Xerox copies of stuff that he's working on, and he's teaching me the entry level of animation, which is called in-betweening, and you're drawing the drawings in between. The key drawings is what your supervisor does. They do drawing 1 and drawing 10, and the in-betweener draws all the ones that make it move across the screen. So he's teaching me in-betweening, and in the meantime, I'm drawing, and he says, this goes on for a few months. And he says, okay, we have your portfolio. Let's look through all your drawings. And he starts picking out which ones he likes best. We put them together in a leather binder. And I submitted over at Disney in 97. And at this time, they were just finishing Hercules. So they weren't really hiring anybody. And they said, we like your drawings, but come back in 6 months when we're hiring again. So I was kind of bummed. But then there was this brand new studio opening down the street. And they were making their first animated film. It was called DreamWorks, was this studio. And so I go down to DreamWorks, and it's funny because I was actually working that day in my pest control truck. And DreamWorks had, at that time, their building was this little office building in the back lot of Universal Studios, and they have a security guard there. But I pull up in my pest control truck, and the guy looks out the window, and he opens the gate and waves me in because he thinks I'm there to spray the place. Yeah. So I drive into DreamWorks in my pest control truck and my uniform, and I've got my leather binder of my drawings, and I drop them off. And they call me back in a few weeks. They said, we love your drawings. Come in and take the animation test, the in-between test for this new film called The Prince of Egypt. And so I take the test, and then they call me up and they said, congratulations, we're going to hire you as an in-betweener to come work on this feature film.
Wow.
So jeez,
we actually need to take a quick break for a message from our sponsor. I know we were just getting into the good stuff here. I didn't want to interrupt you.
This is the most suspenseful intermission ever.
This is great though. I want to get into this. So hang tight.
Sure.
Like I said, we're going to play a message from our sponsor, and then we'll be back to chat with Thomas some more. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Jed's Barbershop. With 3 locations now, you have no reason to not always look your best. Go get a haircut, a beard trim, or even a straight razor shave. Jed's Barbershop is open 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday 9 to 7, and Sunday 12 to 5. They have a location downtown at 212 South, 700 East, and in Sugar House at 2153 East, 2100 South. They just opened up a 3rd location at 167 East, 900 South, right next to Randy's Records. No appointment is necessary. Head on over to jedsbarbershop.com for more information. To kind of back up the story a little bit, you got called into DreamWorks.
Yeah.
And they loved your animation.
My drawings, I did my gesture drawings.
Mm-hmm. Did they hire you on the spot, or how did that work? I mean,
so it kind of
sounds like it's kind of drawn out for no pun intended there, but nice. They kind of drug it out for a little while, right?
Yeah, it takes a while. These things, especially with these big studios, they have so many people applying. I mean, a brand new studio like DreamWorks working on their first feature film, they're getting thousands and thousands of portfolios from all around the world. And so the fact that I got in at all was just a miracle.
What was going through your head at this time?
Oh my goodness!
I mean, were you like, no, this isn't happening to me?
Yeah, I was. Well, I was bummed because the Disney thing didn't happen. They said, well, come back in 6 months, and I was like, oh, dang it. And so when the DreamWorks thing, when I dropped off the portfolio, I got that first call, and they said, we like your drawings because they want to see how well you can draw humans and animals. Because gesture drawing is like the most difficult thing to do to make it look natural pose and proportions.
That's what I was wondering. I have a question when you're done.
Oh yeah. They figure if you can draw good humans and animals in natural poses with correct proportions, you can draw anything. So they don't even want to see cartoons. They just want to see life drawing. And so that's all my portfolio was to see life drawings. And so they said, we like your life drawings. We want you to come in and take the in-betweening test, which is, like I said, drawing the in-between drawings. And so they gave me a couple of drawings, like drawing number 1 and drawing number 10. And they said, do as many of these in-betweens as you can. And it was just a character moving his arm. It was Moses with a torch, and he's looking up and he's moving his arm across the screen. And so there's all this stuff going on in the animation. He's moving his arm. You have to get the proportions correct, and you have to keep the volumes correct. Because, if the arm is getting skinnier and fatter as it's going across the screen, that's no good. So it's all about volumes and that kind of thing. And so I go in and I take this test, and it's this 8-hour long test, and I'm just a nervous wreck. And I'm in there with like 10 other guys, and we're all just drawn away for that whole day. And then they said, thanks for coming. We'll be in touch. And then you don't hear anything for, weeks. It's just nothing. And then they called me up and they said, I think they first said I didn't make the cut for production. And so I was bummed again. But then they called me back a couple days later and they said, well, we have this training program going on for people with no experience. And if you're interested, we'll pay you like a regular job for 3 months. It's not guaranteed, but it's a training program. I was like, what have I got to lose,
The pest control job? You got that to lose?
I do, but, I've gone through several pest control companies, and there's a lot of them out there. Okay. So I feel pretty good that if I needed to, I can fall back onto pest control. Okay, I still had my state pest control license, my structural pest control license. Really? Well, I had it,
Oh, I'm like, you still have it?
No, I probably still have it somewhere.
That's awesome.
But I had that, so I'm like, if anything falls apart, I could go back to pest control. But I'm going to take a shot at this DreamWorks thing. And so I go into this training program, and for 3 months, we're just learning and that type of thing. And at the end of it, there was 15 of us, and they said, we're going to keep 10 of you to go onto the film. And so then it's just like this whole game of Survivor. You're in this room with all these other artists, and they're calling each of you down one by one to let you know if you're going to make it onto the film or not.
Was there any fear amongst the artists, like worrying like one was going to poison the other or
oh
try to,
God. Yeah, you're looking around at who you might be able to knock off, like if you had to.
You don't trust anyone.
Yeah.
You're just like,
but everyone's smiling at each other. So you're like, hey, good luck. And inside you're just like, and so
I'm serious. I mean, you worry about that, right? Like, when you're applying for a job at your job.
When you're actively pitted against each other.
And
really.
This goes on over and over again throughout my career, the same thing. So they're calling each of us down one by one. And the one guy that I felt horrible for was one of the guys in the room. They called him down. And like a half hour later, the producer comes back up and they're like, hey, have you guys seen John? And we're like, yeah, he went down like a half hour ago. Yeah, he hasn't come down. We haven't seen him. So we're looking around for this guy. It turns out he got stuck in the elevator, one of the elevators going down to see the producers. And they finally figured him out. They got him out of the elevator, and then they told him he didn't make it. He got cut.
Because he got stuck in the elevator.
No, he was already cut.
That is so sad.
It was horrible. I felt so bad for him.
Do they actually do this every time? Is it kind of like you're a contractor for this thing? So they don't actually have full-time employees.
You're a full-time employee until they no longer need you. The way the wording on the contract used to be per project, and then I think it was as needed or something like that. And so, yeah, you're like a contractor.
So it's still pretty feast or famine-y.
Oh yes,
wow.
And that was the one thing that working in feature film was just so stressful because you would work 10 months or a year. And then you would just be nail biting, like hoping to get onto the next film.
Would a job like that pay pretty decent?
Oh yeah, no, it paid wonderfully.
So you get paid decent. So
you get paid
like a teacher, you just get summers off.
Yeah, but sometimes it can go on forever if they don't have something else going. And so you found yourself bouncing in between studios. You would go to DreamWorks and then go to Disney and go to Sony or Warner Brothers or Fox or whoever had stuff going on. And you found you would be working with all the same people because everyone was doing the same thing. I mean, unless you were like one of the rock star animators that the studios would just hang on to you forever. The rank and file guys like us, if they didn't have another film ready to go, you were just gone. They'd be like, hey, we'll call you back in a few months, maybe.
You're almost like a pool that they could just pick from when they needed it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've literally had a producer say animators were a dime a dozen.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah, because there's so many animators,
Which
especially
is
in
insane
LA.
because it's such a difficult thing.
So I'm going to link the IMDb page up to this, but what have you done animation for? Is it too much to rattle off right now while we have you?
I can rattle through all of them. So I started at DreamWorks, and I was on Prince of Egypt, and then I got brought back, fortunately, on the Road to El Dorado. And then at that time, they let me go because their next film, Spirit, wasn't ready. And so they let me go, and I did some freelance for Disney on the Tigger movie. That was just from home. But then they hired me full-time at Disney Feature. I got on to The Emperor's New Groove, and I ended up staying there for 3 years at Disney Feature, working on Atlantis and then Treasure Planet. And then their last hand-drawn animated film at that time was Home on the Range. It was a cow movie, and I worked on that.
Wasn't that Rosie O'Donnell?
Yes.
Okay, I remember. I've never seen it, but
She has kids, so she's seen
I'm a
most
big
of these
Disney
cartoons.
person.
You know what I mean?
And I would like to thank you for Emperor's New Groove, because when I was senior in high school, I had all 4 of my impacted teeth out. And I couldn't do anything for a week, and all I did was watch it on repeat.
Nice.
And it was like the best week of my life.
That's so awesome.
It was so great.
Anyway, we interrupted you though.
No, that's fine.
The other,
we got tons of stories about that one too. So I was there, finished their last hand drawn was Home on the Range, and then at that time we all got laid off again, and I went back to DreamWorks and worked on their last hand drawn film was Sinbad. Legend of the Seven Seas.
Oh, the Sinbad the Sailor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Worked on Sinbad. And then at that time, DreamWorks had another open call for all of us rank and file animators to learn computer animation. And so everyone had to submit whatever they happened to be working on. People were taking classes or learning on their own computer animation because the hand-drawn stuff was getting phased out. And so I had been learning on my own at home. A friend of mine was teaching me, and so I submitted this little test that I had on computer animation, and I made the cut. There was like 70 of us, and they took 16 of us for this, again, 3-month computer animation training. And they said, it's no guarantees, but we'll train you for 3 months. And so I got into this group of 16. And then about halfway through, they said, oh, and by the way, we're going to keep 8 of you to go onto the film.
I'm going to put you in a room with some knives.
Put you in the room with some knives, some chains, and yeah.
And you were one of those?
And lo and behold, I got picked up. I made it through that, and I got on to Shark Tale, which was DreamWorks' first CG film in Glendale there. And Shark Tale wasn't the best movie, but I was so happy to be on it. It revitalized my career learning computer animation. And so
did you really enjoy switching to computer animation, or did you miss the hand drawing?
I didn't miss the drawing so much. When you're drawing for 12 hours a day, it felt like your hand was going to fall off. Felt like it was on fire, just cramping of holding the pencil. So the computer was nice. I draw with my left hand, but I use a mouse with my right. And so I suddenly didn't have to use my left hand anymore.
So wait, you're left-handed then?
I'm left-handed.
See, there you go.
Yeah.
Your son can
My son can be an animator.
Yeah, an animator.
Probably
there
not.
You go. Probably not. Go into programming. It's a much better career.
That's where he's going to go.
There you go.
So
I got into computer animation. I worked on Shark Tale, and then their next film was Over the Hedge, was a DreamWorks film. And then from there was another layoff. There was a gap in between that and the B movie. And so I found myself out of work again. And there was a Technicolor in Burbank had a small video game division. We were like a contract house. So we were picking up contracts. So I got a job at Technicolor doing video games. And they were a contract place, so you were getting stuff from everywhere. So one week, we'd be working on God of War 2, and then the month later we were on Spyro the Dragon, the little purple dragon, and then we're working on Gears of War, and then we're working on Saints Row. And so it was a whole variety of just different video games that I got into.
They just kind of moved you around.
Did you like video games over like the animation?
The animation's very similar.
Similar.
The software is all the same. There's a little bit of a difference as far as how quickly animations react in video games than they do in feature film. In feature film, if you have a character that's going to punch somebody, he's going to pull way back and do this big anticipation, and then he's going to throw the punch because the audience doesn't know he's going to throw the punch. So we almost have to guide the audience into what's going to happen. So you build in these big anticipations for all your movements. It's like Bugs Bunny when he's about to run. He goes way back and then he takes off running. Well, in video games, if you were to hit the button to punch somebody on a video game and he pulled his arm way back and then threw it, it would feel so sluggish. It would feel like you're in the mud. You would hate that because now you no longer,
because you can't control the reaction time.
You know what's going to happen, not like the audience in a film where they don't know. In a game, you're controlling.
So interesting.
So when you hit that, you want them to throw it immediately, and so it's a different type of animating where you have to chop off all those big anticipations and make it just boom on the spot. It's got to punch.
So you have to take the cartoony out of cartoons.
Exactly. And that was the first one of the big things I had to learn coming from film into games. I would do these punches and I would have them pull way back. And, my boss would say, take the first 20 frames of your animation and just chop it off so that it would just punch as soon as it plays. And so it was a different type of, animation. So I'm at Technicolor but we're in California and I'm living way out in the high desert still, and it's really expensive. And the commute, I'm driving like an hour and a half one way just to get to work. Wow. And it's just killing me, but I can't afford anything in town, to live in Burbank. You're going to drop, close to $1 million on a house. They're at that time, especially in 2008, this was right before the bubble.
Yeah.
Houses were, they were sky high. And so we were just looking for something. My daughter was going into middle school, and where we were, the schools were really bad. The police were always there. There was a lot of gang violence. And I was like, I don't want her to have to grow up in the same stuff that we grew up in, my wife and I. So we got to get out of here. Where can we go? And so we're just looking everywhere. And in California, there's just not a lot of choices, that you can afford somewhere nice. So a friend of mine that I knew in California, I'd heard he had gotten this job in Salt Lake City. What is he doing in Utah? And so I was on the phone with him one day and I was like, dude, what are you doing in Utah? And he's like, man, I'm working for Disney. They have the game studio out here called Avalanche Software, and Disney owns it. And they're doing these amazing things. And he's like, this place is great. It's family oriented. People leave at a normal hour, like 5 o'clock. You can actually go home. Because, in California, that's just the lifestyle, especially in the studios. People just work late all the time. You try to leave at 5 and you're just getting dirty looks all around. So he's like, people actually enjoy their time with their families and it's affordable, and Disney's got this studio and it's just awesome. And so my wife and I and the kids, we got on a plane and flew out just to check it out. And we're like, this is unbelievable. And I know
you're going to ruin the secret.
I'm torn about letting people know and inviting people. I might have to
edit this out of the podcast.
Yes.
How did your kids feel? When you flew out to visit, were they excited or were they super
They didn't
pissed?
know exactly at first what we were doing. They thought it was a little mini vacation.
They were just like, cool, we get to go somewhere.
Yeah, we're going to go take a flight. I'd never been on a plane at that point.
Wait, you had never been on a plane? Are you serious?
Well, they had no reason.
Well, I
never had anywhere to go.
That's how
everything's in California.
That's how it was. That's how it was even for me.
All of our family was there, and never got. This was the first time to get on a plane for my wife and I and my kids. We all flew out here, our maiden voyage, and we to Salt Lake City, and it was so cool. I was scared to death being on the plane.
What time of the year did you come here?
It was in the summer.
Okay, so good time of the year.
It was beautiful. There was still snow. It might have been in spring because there was snow up in the mountains. I remember driving up there. But we fly out here and we're just checking out the studio and we're looking at house prices and we're like, my goodness, we can get the same house in Sandy on the East Bench than where I was 65 miles outside of town in the desert with tumbleweeds and Joshua trees all around me. it was like, we can live right here. We're 15 minutes from downtown instead of the hour and a half, and like, sign me up, And so I got the job here with Avalanche Software, and we sold the house and came out here, and we've been here ever since.
And what year was this again?
That was in 2008.
Okay, so you've been here for a minute,
almost 9 years.
Yeah, coming on 9 years in June.
But you got here like kind of right when Salt Lake City was becoming cool, in my opinion, because there was a early 2000s. It was pretty rough. Even 90s was pretty rough in Salt Lake City.
I loved it. I loved just that it was rush hour. To me, feels like it's actually an hour here rather than all day long. Like California, there's no rush hour.
Well, that's
rush.
The thing. Yeah,
rush day.
You go out, 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, 3. It's all the same.
405, it never clears up.
Yeah.
It's like that around the clock in California. So I loved just that. I loved where we live in Sandy, that, my kids at the time were 10 and 12, and they can get on their bikes and ride down the street and go to the park, and I didn't have to be right behind them. Like, it was just idyllic. Like, this is so cool. This is what it reminded me of when I was a kid growing up in the 70s. It really was. My kids went to Brighton High School, and my daughter was in the pep band, and we'd go to see her play and watch the football games. And everyone's just really into it. And there's cheerleaders, and they're selling hot dogs. And we're looking around. We're like, the first few times my wife and I are like, where are we? This is like Pleasantville. Like, what is this place? But it was just so nice. But it was like, I really like this. Like, no, we didn't go to football games at my high school. And in Pacoima, you would get shot. Like,
so sad.
Do you still get back to California?
Yeah, we go out there a lot. We got all our families out there, and so we go out there quite a bit.
Have you gotten any of them to move here?
No, they've come to visit though. I remember we had my brother-in-law and his family came out, and they were even the same. All their kids, who are my kids' age, they were all going to the park, and they came back to the house, and they're like, "It's the weirdest thing. Everybody says hi to you when you walk by at the park." They're like, "What is up with that?" And I'm like, "Isn't that cool?" Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love just that outsider perspective.
Yeah.
We don't get that, Chrissy.
And
you kind of get lost in that.
To be fair, me coming from the Midwest, I had a very different initial perspective. It's cool to hear a different perspective.
Oh, California is a much different place than Wisconsin, Chris. That's where
I don't think I want to go to California.
Wisconsin. My brother's in Wisconsin.
What part?
I think he was near Mukwonago.
Okay, Mukwonago. Yeah.
Yes.
That's around where I was.
Mukwonago?
I think that's where he still is. Or Sussex. Is that near there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
All those Indian names.
So you also, just to kind of make sure we touch base on everything here, I want to touch base on everything. You also do a lot of art on your own, like you recently sold a bunch at like the Comic-Con.
Yeah.
Do you do events like that a lot, or
no? It's very new. So after the hand-drawn animation ended, I got into computer animation, and it was such a relief on my hand not to draw, because I'd been drawing for so long. And, I was just horrible cramping, and I had this really giant callus on my finger from holding a pencil for so many years.
That's what that's from. My daughter has one of those.
Oh, yeah, I'm like,
what's
tiny.
wrong with your finger? And she's like, I don't know. She's an artist.
Yes, from holding a pencil.
I have an
answer. This is small now. That used to be like twice the size. And so I didn't draw for years. In fact, when I came up here to Avalanche with Disney, there's so many amazing artists there that I'm a typical artist. I'm very neurotic, and I don't think I'm any good. And so I just didn't draw. I was so intimidated to draw around other amazing artists. Even the whole time I was in feature film, I only drew on the pictures, but I didn't draw just on the side.
You didn't do your own artwork?
No, because
you'd get judged.
Oh yeah, and these guys are way better than I am, and so I just didn't do it. And so for years I didn't. I just intimidated to draw.
What got you out of that?
Literally just this last summer, I went to a Comic-Con with a coworker of mine, Adrian Ropp, who's the head of story, and he's a wonderful artist. And he invited me to go to Comic-Con last summer because they were doing a panel Making Disney Magic panel, and I got invited to take part with that with him. And so while there at the panel, I started hanging around his booth. He has an art booth, and he has these drawings, and I'm just so inspired by what he's doing. And I'm looking at all these other artists. There's Artist Alley I never knew anything about.
Isn't Comic-Con the best place to go to check out local art?
So cool.
There's so many brilliant people out here.
Incredible artists. And so I'm just looking around like, these guys are all amazing. And Adrian is just really encouraging, and he's like, wants to see what stuff that I've done. And so I started just doodling a little bit in this last summer, and it just, I don't know, something clicked in my head where it just became this thing where I just started drawing again. And he was just awesome that way, and just encouraging me. He was showing me what type of stuff that he uses, the markers and this type of thing. And so I just started taking off just drawing again. This just started happening this last summer. And so, Fan X was just this last March. And so he's like, dude, you got to get a booth. And he's telling me how to get it. Like, here's what you do. You get the banner, and you got your table, and here's the display, and here's where I get my prints made. And so he's just been awesome that way. And so I just started following in his footsteps, just doing everything that
I love that about Salt Lake is everyone's so encouraging of each other. Even if you're doing the same thing, you can easily find a mentor or mentor someone else.
Yeah. And I
think
it was
environment.
I think it was a lot of that. I didn't feel that same intimidation of like, I've got to hide what I'm doing, or I'm not as good as some of these guys. I mean, when you're working at Disney Feature or DreamWorks, I mean, these are some of the best artists in the world. And you're just like, I can't stack up with these guys. But
oh, man.
It was just cool in that they were, Adrian's just very encouraging, and everything I drew, he's like, that's fantastic. It's so good. And he was just really cool. And so it just made me very comfortable to start drawing again. And so I got the booth. That was my first booth just this last March at Fan X. And I'd never done that before. And it was awesome. Would
you do it again?
Yeah. I just bought one for Comic-Con this September.
Nice.
So I'll be back to do my second
So you're
one.
really working on creating more original artwork and everything?
Yeah, I'm doing
cool.
there's a lot of original artwork. A lot of it's fan art. A lot of it's based on films that I've worked on. And that's kind of a cool thing because, people want to see drawings from Emperor's New Groove and Prince of Egypt. And so I'm just doing fan art, of Cusco and Moses and just anything that I can. And I try to put my own spin on it, make it my own. But it's really cool because you'll get it's interesting at this time, like at Fan X or Comic-Con, you're getting these kids who are now in their early 20s who've grown up watching Emperor's New Groove and The Road to El Dorado, and they're seeing this stuff. They're like, "Oh my God, I've worked." I saw that.
Full. Yeah.
I grew up watching The Prince of Egypt, and so I've got a lot of artwork based on that type of stuff, and doing prints, and then I do commissions, and so I've been selling stuff like on Etsy. People will have me draw specific things that they like.
What are you working on now? Like, are you working on any animation or anything that you could talk about?
Yeah, I can talk. In fact, there's one drawing that I did, an original drawing that I actually snuck in here to get to you two. And there you go. Perfect drawing for radio.
Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
That's for you guys.
Holy
It's a little caricature that I did.
Oh my goodness.
So you guys will have to look for that later.
This is amazing.
That is like, I'm going to cry. Look at that.
This is so we'll paint. We'll
okay, but I have to tell everyone who's listening, he had it hidden under his shirt the whole time we've been talking.
I was wondering if you guys were going to hear the crinkling of the plastic bag that it's in.
No, this is amazing.
Oh, I'm going to cry. That is so cute. No one's ever cartoonized
you like it?
We should use this on our wedding thing.
No,
Perfect.
don't do that.
Oh yeah, we don't. Then we don't have to do wedding pictures. We'll just pay you the photographer.
That is amazing.
There you go. So there's a little original caricature for you guys.
I'm
we're going to take
cry.
a picture.
Okay.
Is that cool?
Pictures of it.
That is so cool.
We'll put it with the show notes on
Awesome.
this podcast.
This
So
is
there you go. So that's the kind of thing I've
so
been doing.
adorable.
A lot of this type of stuff.
Oh my
And it's
love
just
it.
fun. It's nothing fancy but it's it's something creative for me to do, and so I draw a lot now.
Good thing I didn't shave my beard off today.
I was really worried about whether you guys were either gonna, like, if you changed your hair or if you shaved off the beard. I was gonna be like, I really hope.
Like, come on, guys.
I know. I was trying to find like a good up to date recent photo, hoping that there wouldn't be any major changes. So I was happy when I saw both of you. Like, all right, I think this still looks like the.
Guess we should stay the same. That is so badass. Oh, thank you.
Like it? Cool.
Oh my gosh.
So what would you recommend to somebody listening? Like Chrissy's daughter is interested. Well, she likes art.
Yeah.
What would you recommend somebody who's either interested in art, becoming an artist, a young person? What would you recommend to them? Tell them.
Well, the cool thing nowadays is you have so much information, for everything. When I was in junior high and high school, I didn't know anything. Like there was nobody to really ask unless you happen to run into someone like I did that worked at Disney. Even drawing books, there wasn't a lot of resources out there on proper technique. I remember finding at the library, there was a book called How to Draw the Marvel Way. It was a superhero Marvel book. And it had a breakdown of how to draw human bodies with basic shapes, geometric shapes, and how to build drawings rather than just draw from the outside. You would draw from the inside out, and construction and foundational drawing. And, finding that book in the library was just like a gold mine for me. And I would check, I think I checked out that book like 100 times. I never actually owned it because I didn't even know where to buy it.
Yeah.
But I knew it was there at the library. So I would always hide it somewhere and then check it out again. And
go hide it in the kids section.
Yes. And so, but the cool thing today is you just have so much information. I mean, if you want to learn how to be an animator or learn how to do any of those things, I mean, you can look up so much of that stuff, and I think that's the important thing is as an artist, at least if you want to get into something like game development or film, animated films or that type of thing, it's trying to find the specific discipline within that. Sometimes people think as a video game developer that I'm doing everything, that I'm building the character, that I'm animating it, that I'm putting it into the game. And it's instead, it's like this little assembly line. There's all these little disciplines that are going on. And as you work in a studio, you're for the most part working in just one of those disciplines.
You're very, very specialized.
Very specialized. And they want you to get really good at that one thing. And that's a common mistake is we get artists who come in and they are generalists or their demo reel or their portfolio is all over the place because they're like, well, I can do a little bit of concept art, a little bit of modeling, a little bit of rigging, a little bit of animation. And it's like, yeah, we don't even know where to put you because you're all over. Like we need you to pick one of those and really focus and get really good at that. Yeah. And so that's a big thing is figuring out what it is you want to do. And college is great in that they will expose you to all those disciplines. You'll learn a little bit of each of them, but at some point you're going to want to really focus in on one of those, whether it's concept art or modeling or animation. Like when I do animation, that's all I do. I'm just an animator. I don't know the first thing about building that character or putting the controls on him or designing him or writing the code or doing the effects animation like fire and smoke and that type of thing. Those are all separate disciplines. And so it's really trying to get really good at that one that you're really interested in.
I love it.
That's actually really good advice.
I just have a couple more questions here and then we'll get wrapped up here with the podcast. But we always have to ask Salt Lake City related questions.
Sure.
Just because people will beat me up if I don't ask you these. But if somebody was visiting Salt Lake City for a day, is there anything, or, anywhere along the Wasatch Front, really, mountains, I mean, where would you tell them to go check out? Like, say your family in California is coming here.
Oh, wow. I mean, we always love taking them just up one of the Cottonwood Canyons. Sure. I mean, it's just so beautiful to drive up there and that it's so close, that you can be up in the mountains and just
you can just stop in a park up there.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, in California, it took 2 hours to get anywhere, whether you're going to the beach or up into the mountains.
Or just the grocery store.
To the grocery store. Forget about trying to go to Santa Monica or something. But to just the fact that you can be up in the mountains within just a couple of minutes is beautiful. We love going to the Capitol. I think it's such a beautiful building.
It really is.
You can just walk in there and see that dome and just how amazing that is, the marble. And we love doing that. You know, mostly the outdoor stuff, going up and just seeing the forests and the trees, and it's just incredible.
Any favorite local eating spots? Any places that you like to go out to eat?
Our favorite right now for Mexican is Hector's.
Hector's is good.
Hector's, that's some good stuff. Yeah, we like that a lot. Los Garcias in Sandy's, another awesome Mexican place. We go to Smoky Mountain Pizza in Sandy. I'm trying to think of what else. Those are the big ones right now.
No, I love it. You know, I always just like to find where people, you know, local recommendations that you're not your typical chain restaurants.
Hector's right now, that's the big one that we've been going to. Yeah. You guys go there?
Sounds good.
Is that the one up 33rd or no? That's
is that in Mill Creek?
Yeah. It's been a while since I've been there.
I've never actually been there.
Chrissy's not a big Mexican fan.
I'm learning to love Mexican.
What are your favorites?
Los Cucos. Oh, wait. Oh, my favorite food in general?
Well, yeah, and your
Asian
favorite
food.
Asian, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
She's
Thai
an
food.
Asian.
Oh, nom. But I'm learning to love Mexican. And is it Los Cucos?
In Sandy?
In Sandy, right?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah,
they have
good.
a fried avocado. Have you had that?
No.
So good. It's a stuffed avocado and they fry it.
Fried avocado.
Stuff
That
it with
sounds
beef.
Why have you never taken me there?
Because you're gluten free. I eat
Oh man.
You miss out.
Sorry.
I'll take you there. But that's
some good stuff too. See, when in California, my aunt had an avocado tree in her yard.
Oh my gosh.
I remember as a kid going there with my dad, and you would just pluck them off the tree, and he would have his pocket knife and cut it open and just eat it like that.
See, that just sounds like a dream. Like you can just
avocado
pick an avocado
trees in California are just plentiful.
Yeah.
See, and that's something that I've never seen. That's crazy.
You can't grow them out here, I don't think.
No, probably not.
Anything else you want to ask him before we let him go? Anything? I mean, there's probably tons of stuff.
Oh, there's so many things
we could talk about.
We can talk.
So many things.
I'll tell you a funny story.
Okay,
just real quick.
Oh, you're fine.
Because this ties in with the pest control and the DreamWorks thing, and it's one of those. You know, to me, I enjoy it because it's one of those stories that if I can do this, anybody can. You know, like it's like dreams actually come true at times. You know, like this is.
Well, I mean, but what would you say to people who really have always had the passion to do art, but like can't find themselves able to even start? Like they can't even sit down and think. Like they'll look at a canvas forever or look at a piece of paper and just be like, I don't even know what to do.
You got to start somewhere. I mean, it's all starting with the basics, you know, and I think it is something that you can. It's about training your eye to really look to see what it is you're looking at, you know.
Yeah. Do you think it can be learned?
You know, I'm not sure. I often wonder about that. How much of, especially with art or sports, I wonder. I'm a horrible athlete. I don't know if I ever had if there was ever enough training to teach me to be a better athlete, to be physically coordinated.
I think you have to be passionate so you push yourself to become good at it.
And I think that's a part of it. You know, with drawing, that was just something that I did all the time. That's all I wanted to do. Yeah. And so I think I got better just because I had that in me. That's all I could think about growing up was just drawing all the time. I just enjoyed it so much. But it's funny, when I was at DreamWorks, so I get hired there and I'm on The Prince of Egypt, and I'm there on that film for about a year or so. And there's a lot of people, you know, in DreamWorks, it's several hundred people. So I didn't get to know everybody, obviously. I was just on my first film. But on my second film, I got called back to work on The Road to El Dorado. And on that film, I was getting cast onto the next team of artists because they would group us into different teams per character. And so I was going to be on the Tulio team, which is the other main character on El Dorado. And the producer is taking me in to meet my new supervisor. And her name is Nicola Courtney, wonderful artist, Irish. And she, I'd known who she was, but I never met her because she was on a different team for Prince of Egypt. And so I was going to work with her finally. And so they bring me in, the producer, into Nicola's office, and she's sitting there and she has her back to the door. And they say, Nicola, this is Thomas Estrada, and he's going to be your assistant for El Dorado. And without turning around, her head just pops up, and she was drawing. Her head pops up and she says, Thomas Estrada, were you in pest control? As she turns her chair towards me. And I'm thinking, did I spray her house? I don't remember spraying her house. And I said, yeah. And she says, I remember when you applied here last year on the Prince of Egypt.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like,
so she was
really?
probably one of the people that kind of reviewed you.
She said, I was on the review board. She says, I was looking at portfolios. And she says, and we had thousands of portfolios, just stacks of them. And she says, I remember going through them all. And there was a group of us going through portfolios. And she says, I remember picking yours up, and I'm looking through the drawings, and I thought, these drawings aren't bad. He's got some nice stuff here. She says, but the thing that caught my eye, she said, I remember looking at the little resume you had, and it said current occupation, pest control.
That is so cool.
And she says, look at this guy. He's killing bugs, and he wants to be an animator. She said, why don't we give this guy a shot? Let him come in and take the animation test. And she says, I liked your drawings. Don't get me wrong. But she's like, I just remember seeing pest control. She's like, because everyone else was, they're graduating from art schools, or they were coming from other studios. And here's this guy in pest control, and he wants to get a shot.
Gosh.
And she's like, let's go ahead and give him a try. And
that is
I'm
such
like,
a great
wow.
story.
It goes to show, I think a lot of people are afraid to put themselves out there.
Yeah.
Right? In anything in life.
Yeah.
But if you just do it, here's a
do
guy
it.
from Pest Control, and then he did animation for Disney.
All of a sudden, I'm sitting there drawing Moses on the Prince of Egypt. I'm just like, how in the world did this happen? This
That
is
is
the
so
craziest
great.
Slapping
thing.
bugs with your other hand.
Yeah, exactly. I still have that twitch. It's almost gone.
I've had a heck of a conversation. I am so glad to bring you on the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Thank you so much for coming on.
How can people find you? Do you have a website, or I know you...
I probably post the most stuff on Instagram.
Instagram. So follow you on Instagram.
Yeah, I think it's my name on my handle on there is Felix Brown SLC.
Okay.
And Felix Brown is a really obscure Brady Bunch reference, if you remember that TV show from the 70s.
I do
Really?
remember. I
remember
guess
the
I never
show.
got into Brady Bunch. I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's an unseen, rather unsavory character that's mentioned like in 2 episodes. And it's
Really?
usually for really bad purposes.
Okay.
Like there was one of the episodes was Marcia is up late writing a letter for her father, and someone accuses her. I bet she's writing to that creep Felix Brown. And it was like offensive. And then the other episode, the only other time he's mentioned is when Marcia and Greg are running for class president against each other, the brother and sister. Mm-hmm. And Greg's campaign manager says, how we'll get that Marcia? Let's spread a rumor that she was in the theater with that creep Felix Brown. And it was bad enough that Greg kicked him off the campaign, fired him, and that was the whole episode was hinged on that creep Felix Brown.
Oh my gosh, no way. That is fun.
So stupid.
So you made that your artist cover name?
Yes.
That's so great.
Well, I'll put that link at iamsaltlake.com with this podcast.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, and then I think I'm on this Thomas Estrada, or the Art of Thomas Estrada on Twitter. And
Okay.
Then you can find me on IMDb, and I have that thing there.
What's your Etsy shop if people want to look you up?
Oh, that's
You're on Etsy, yeah. That's right.
I am on Etsy. That's Art of Thomas Estrada.
Okay, and I'll put those links with this episode show notes.
Yeah, and they have some stuff on there that I'm some originals, and I also do commissions. So I get all kinds of requests, and I'll consider just about anything. That's not too weird.
That is so great. That's not too weird.
Maybe we'll have to commission him to do some more work for us.
Absolutely,
I know,
I'd love
for
to.
real.
Let me know.
But, well, cool.
This has been fantastic. Thanks for
This
having me
has been fun.
on.
I just feel like I can do anything now.
It's just so weird. I mean, I still can't believe that I get to do this for a living. Every day I feel like someone's going to come in and tap me on the shoulder and say, all right, let's get out of here. Like, I don't know how you fooled anybody to get
So you
into
live
this
with
place.
imposter syndrome.
I just heard of that for the first
Yeah.
time, and I was like, I think that's me.
I think that's a sign of you being good at what you do.
Really?
Mm-hmm. People with imposter syndrome, in my experience, are actually some of the best, like most talented people, because you really probably try to raise yourself up to a higher standard constantly. Like you're never satisfied.
I guess so. I don't know.
From meeting artists and
I honestly, sometimes I'm sitting there animating and I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't, they can't find it. They can find anybody can do this. Like this, there really isn't anything to what I'm doing here.
There's pest control places here in Salt Lake.
That's right. And I still see those
plans.
trucks.
They
yes. I can get that license back and reactivate my license.
Very cool. We'll end it there. And I tell people all the time, let's catch up down the road, bring you back on the
Absolutely.
podcast.
I'd love to come back. I didn't even get into any of the crazy stories working on these films and celebrities.
Part 2.
We should have like story time number 2.
Oh my goodness.
We'll just cut out all the names and we'll tell all the fun stories.
Or just how horrible or how badly films are produced, like as far as stuff that gets rewritten and cut out and all the inefficiencies and that kind of stuff. There's tons of that stuff.
That would be interesting.
Oh yeah.
We don't ever see that as people.
Yeah. We'll end it here now,
yes.
and we'll catch up down. I feel
Absolutely.
like am I?
No.
Like,
how long have we been going? I don't even know.
It's about an hour and 10.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No.
So
it did not feel that long at all.
It did not.
So we'll thank you so much, Thomas. We will end it there, and like I always say, let's catch up down the road. All right. Many thanks again to Thomas Estrada for coming on this podcast and sharing his story. Head on over to imsaltlake.com/273 for all the links and information to get in touch with him. We'll put that picture up there that he drew of us.
Oh, I think I've plastered it everywhere on social media.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, I'm sure there's people listening that haven't had a chance to see it yet.
That's probably true. It's super cute.
But, in the interview, we kept saying, should we record a little bit more? Should we do it?
Yeah.
We actually recorded a special episode for our Patreon supporters.
Bonus episode with Thomas Estrada.
Episode. So that should be up in the next day or so. You can head on over to our Patreon site and find out how you can become a supporter of the show and get some bonus content like the extra Thomas Estrada. If you go to imsaltlake.com/swarm, that will send you over to Patreon. There's also a little banner up top at imsaltlake.com.
And you can get a sticker.
Yeah, you get a sticker and some other stuff, some koozies. And plus, you just get to keep the lights on for us, guys. I mean,
it's like rewards for you and the warmness in your heart that you're helping us out.
Hey, so this past week, I finally took you to Tin Angel.
Hot damn, that place is good. I was so excited. I was so excited.
It's been a minute since I've been there, but I was really excited to take you because I knew it was your first time. Mm-hmm. Even though we had Kestrel on episode 265, I knew it would be a lot more exciting for you to go there and kind of see the ambiance and see kind of how they have it all set up.
And you know what I really liked? Like the ambiance is amazing. I loved everything. But I did notice too, the people that work there and all of the staff are so friendly. Like just listening to the girls who were greeting and sitting people and the waitresses, I remember saying, I feel like I'm back in Wisconsin, which to me is huge because it's like they have well, they invited you into their home, really. That's what it felt like. And it felt very, very comforting. Like they were there to be your friend.
Absolutely.
Which it was a great experience. And the food was so good.
What did I had the wild boar stew. You had like the duck.
It's like a duck rice meal. It's way better than that. But it was really good.
Really, really good.
Oh, man.
Go back and listen to that episode 265 with Kestrel. Find out the story of Tin Angel. Beautiful place. If you're ever in downtown Salt Lake City, go check them out. We got an
will not regret it.
We got an iTunes review that I want to read here. This one is awesome. I actually posted it up on Facebook here a couple days ago. It's from Funky Monkey 1106. She writes, "I'm a recent listener, and I'm a bit mystified that this podcast is costing me money. Every time I listen, I have this compulsion to go try something new. Example, a flight of whiskey, gin from Dented Brick. Have a small plate at Tin Angel. Eat a Reuben at Even Stevens. I even hired Jerry Cardova to paint something beautiful on my garage. And this week I'm talking my boyfriend into home brewing hard cider. There may be a problem here. Well done, you two. Well done.
Well, Funky Monkey, I would like to thank you and say it sounds like you have an awesome life. Like you're doing all the cool stuff.
Well, and this week they have to buy some art from Thomas Estrada. I'm so sorry. I'm so
worth it.
Yeah.
Worth it.
Get Thomas to draw a little cartoon figure of you and your boyfriend.
Oh my gosh, that would be so cute.
Wasn't that?
That was such a fun review.
I love iTunes reviews.
Yeah,
because it's like I love to know how we're connecting with the listeners. Mm-hmm. I love to know what they're thinking about the show.
Yeah, like what's actually helpful? What are you liking about the show? It's great because then we know what to do to keep it happy for you.
And if there's something you don't like, let us know too. But this episode of the podcast is sponsored by Jed's Barbershop. With 3 locations now, you have no reason to not always look your best. Go get a haircut, a beard trim, or even a straight razor shave. Jed's Barbershop is open 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday 9 to 7, and Sunday 12 to 5. Their brand new 3rd location is opened up now. It's ready for you to go get a haircut at. It's located at 167 East, 900 South. It's right next door to Randy's Records. They also have a location downtown at 212 South, 700 East, and in Sugar House at 2153 East, 2100 South. No appointment is necessary. They were recently voted Best in State by City Weekly and KSL. So head on over to jedsbarbershop.com for more information. And speaking of haircuts, if you need a haircut, if you're coming to our wedding, go to Jed's.
You better hit up Jed's on the way there. Make it a last minute thing. See how they do.
You don't need to make an appointment. You can take your son there before the haircut or before
I should.
Go take him to go get a haircut before the wedding. But
yeah.
Let's wrap this episode up. I know the interview with Thomas Estrada was a little bit longer than normal, so thank you so much, everybody, for making it this far. Mm-hmm. Remember, you can get a bonus episode from Thomas to our Patreon supporters.
A little extra Thomas.
A little extra Thomas up in you. But we'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode. Again, head on over to imsaltlake.com/273 for links on how you can connect with us and let us know what your thoughts are. Anything else you want to mention, Chrissy, before we let the fine folks out there in podcast land?
You know what? The weather is so nice. Start getting out there and enjoying Salt Lake.
I'm counting down the days for Farmers Market.
Oh, man, me too. I'm so excited.
I'm excited as well. You guys have a great week. Get out, love the city, support local.
And good night, Grammy.